Hi, hello, how are you? Come on in. The Rockwell timepiece says it's time to get coached up with another edition of the Coach Scott Field Show. That's right, I'm proud to partner with Rockwell as I'm a brand ambassador. Go to rockwelltime.com, use the code COACH20 to get 20% off of any of those classic watches and merchandise that they have there. Like and follow the Coach Scott Field Show on Facebook and also subscribe on our YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, Mr. Greg Kite and I say turn that knob up. We're about to put that flavor in your ear. Watch us on DBTV, one of the fastest growing TV networks there is, where we can be seen in over 300 million households. Also on Wednesdays on CSTV, and also check us out on the Rewind Sports 60. Without further ado, I am thrilled and honored to have our guest on with us today. In my circles, this man needs no introduction, but for the younger guys who are viewing us today, this is Mr. Greg Kite, two-time NBA champion with the Boston Celtics, played more than 10 years. My goodness, I've got a list of honors and accolades that would chew up the whole hour. McDonald's All-American, Parade second team All-American, just a high character, quality guy, and thrilled to have Mr. Greg Kite joining us today. Greg, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Coach Scott. Great to be on with you.
Oh,
And great to talk about basketball. We both love it, and we'll talk about it and follow it, I'm sure, till we go to the overtime.
Yes, sir. Hey, appreciate you taking time from your busy schedule. I mean, you pulled over on the side of the road as you just dropped off the kids with some church ball, but thank you so much for just spending this time with us, because I know our viewers are going to get a kick out of this.
Sure. Glad to do it. Glad to do it. Yeah. Yeah. At least I'm not living out of my car. I act like it sometimes, but technology is awesome. It's incredible what we can do with business meetings and communications now. So anywhere on the go, gotta love it.
Hey, matter of fact, I think Thurl Bailey joined me the same way, so you're not alone. Must be
Okay.
something with you 6'10", 6'11", 7-footers, right?
I guess so.
There you
Guess
go.
so.
I love it. Well, Greg, let's get into this. You played your high school ball in Texas, and you had a chance to go to like the blue blood universities. I mean, Kentucky, and I mean, just some great schools. You end up at BYU. What was one of the major factors in you choosing to head down to Provo?
I think it was really an overall decision, but with not just basketball, because they'd had a great basketball tradition there, but it kind of hit a slump, and then it came back with Coach Frank Arnold, who was our coach there. He'd recruited Danny Ainge a couple of years before, and then a couple of other McDonald's All-Americans, Devin Durant and Fred Roberts and Steve Trumbo, and with Steve Craig, who was an all-around athlete. He's Marie Osmond's husband. And anyway, we had things were coming back, but athletically it was great, but also just academically, socially, spiritually. My mom had some Utah roots, and in fact, my mom and I think all of her 5 sisters had either attended or graduated from BYU, uh, and um, and I had my older siblings that all either done the same thing. I was the youngest of 4, so it wasn't a given that I was going there, but all those things combined, those other schools, Duke, Kentucky, uh, uh, Texas, UCLA, and University of Houston were kind of in the final runs. Were all great situations, but could have been a zero. I could have torn up my knee and never played basketball. It was a great and awesome experience at BYU. And best of all, I met my wife Jenny there. She was on the women's team, so I started getting recruited again once I got there. And
Uh,
so
that's
we
great.
met Jenny there. We've been married over 40 years now, and I live down in her hometown of Orlando, Florida.
Congratulations on that. I think that's wonderful. did you make a recruiting visit to Provo? Did you fall in love with the mountains and probably that your faith and that spiritual connection? Is that what really drew you to the
Yeah,
university?
that was a big part of it. Yes, I made a recruiting trip. Interesting story. I'll tell you about that. But I had been there even a year or two before. Just I had like I said, my mom had some Utah roots. I had I think 3 or 4 of my aunts and their families who lived in the Salt Lake area. So even when I was 10, 11 years old, I used to go sometimes spend 3 or 4 weeks with my cousins in Salt Lake and we'd had some other trips up occasionally in the winter. So I was familiar with the area. And like I said, even at that time, my brother, I'm 5.5 years younger than my brother, and he was an undergrad, and then he was in the MBA program at BYU when I was being recruited. My first year, he just graduated from the MBA program, and had another sister who was living in Provo and working at the hospital there as a nurse. So it wasn't like it was a place that was foreign to me. But yeah, all those things combined, like I said, it was just a matter of careful thought and prayer and just a good feeling about it. Not that I had bad choices with those other places,
Right.
but I was gonna tell you the recruiting story. So I'm on my trip there, and they do stuff. We go to a movie, we go to, snowmobiling, and of course they take you on the campus, and we play a little pickup basketball over in the field house, one of the PE gyms, and Danny was playing with us, Fred Roberts, and anyway, so I go up with the ball, and Danny slaps at my hand, slapped at the ball and tried to strip me of the ball, but I broke my knuckle, and and they take me over to see the team doctor, and then that night, Coach Arnold, I'm walking, I got a cast on my hand. He was just like turning white as a ghost. He's kind of like, what the heck happened? But the bad thing about it was that the next week I was supposed to play in the McDonald's All American game in Charlotte, and I couldn't play. And actually, I went on my visit to Duke at the same time, and the doctor there at Duke said, "Oh, you don't need the cast." They cut it off, and 2 or 3 weeks I was playing, but that
Well,
knuckle still hurt for many years.
oh
So,
man, great story. And you mentioned, that McDonald's team, back in 79. I mean, Ralph Sampson, Clark Kellogg, John Paxson, James Worthy, Dominique Wilkins, Isaiah Thomas. What a great class to be involved with. So for your name to be mentioned with those tremendous players had to make you feel good and give you some confidence going into BYU.
oh yeah, that was great. I mean, it was a great honor to be made a McDonald's All American. Back then I used to jump almost as high as Dominique, so that's why. But no, I was even the center class, and people forget these guys a little bit because of the injuries they had. I mean, I was probably, I think, ranked like probably the fourth center in that class. But the centers were Ralph Sampson, Sam Bowie, and Steve Stepanovich, who was an excellent pro, and Ralph and if Ralph and Sam were Hall of Fame talent, but the injuries derailed them. So no, but it was a 79 was an incredible class. Just the guys you mentioned, Isaiah and Dominique and James Ward, on and on. It was just a phenomenal group.
Right.
So it was
And
part of that. Yes.
I think it's awesome. And I look at your career and man, you were so blessed to be around some great basketball minds. I mean, you see Danny Ainge and what he's doing with the Boston Celtics and here now with the Utah Jazz transforming that roster. But what was it like being around Danny Ainge? Because I mean, here he is, a multiple sport athlete and a good leader and someone that you got to play with in college and had success.
Yeah. Well, as being around Danny, we played together 2 years in college, and then I played the 4.5 years in Boston with him, and then 1 year in Sacramento later. Danny, number one, was always a lot of fun. Just an awesome guy. Had lots of fun. Great, fun-loving guy off the court and on the court and things. What a competitor, you know, and a great athlete. Like I said, he's about a scratch golfer, and he was a three-sport a high school All-American, and the peak of the highlight of our uh, achievement at BYU was my sophomore year, Danny's senior year. He's college player of the year, and we get to we're one game away from going to the Final Four. Got that last second drive against Notre Dame, and then we lose to Ralph Sampson of Virginia in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four. But it was just so much fun. And you talk about Danny's talent, and what he's done as a basketball executive now. And even back then, I would sit around with Danny and we'd be watching a football game or something and or a basketball game. And Danny had just such an eye for what was going on in the game. You know, he would recognize that, you can listen to the commentators or whatever or watch the ball, but he'd recognize, the cause and effect of what was going on. So it doesn't surprise me that he has done so well in as a basketball executive and even his short stint as a coach. And I know that he also is continually learning and drawing from other people around him. And so awesome to see what he's continuing to do. And, what a nice surprise the Jazz have been this year.
Yeah, they play hard and there's good ball movement. There's some versatility on the defense and I know Danny kind of likes that blueprint where it's positionless basketball right now. So it's just so fun to talk about. In that 83 draft, you were a first round pick, 21st pick to the Boston Celtics. Take us through that journey, what that meant to you to get that call, to be in such a rich tradition where there's just an amazing culture, and boom, you're a Celtic. What did that feel like? Take us through those emotions.
Yeah, well, first of all, with the draft, I mean, it was these days, I guess they fly everybody up, but then I guess they may have had a handful of people in New York, but I think it was on TBS or TNT, and I was sitting in my wife's parents in my in-laws' house in the living room watching it, and I had been to I probably hadn't quite lived up to expectations, especially offensively, in my junior, senior of college. When Danny was there, I would just, go get the ball off the backboard. And Fred, we had other scores, but anyway, so I was probably maybe early on projected to be like a perhaps second round draft pick, but I had got some good advice and did a lot of working out, stayed in great shape after my senior season and went to the what then was one of the top postseason things, the Aloha Classic in Hawaii, and then to the Chicago pre-draft. And I think I did well in both places. And then just fortuitous, the Celtics had traded Rick Roby for Dennis Johnson
That's right,
to
DJ. Oh, may he
the
rest in
Phoenix
peace. What a
to the
great
yeah,
guy.
absolutely. So big trade. But they had a spot for a backup center. Now, Red liked oh god, I'm blanking out on his name now. Played at Rutgers.
Higgins.
6'9".
Was it Rod
What's that?
Higgins? Was it Rod Higgins?
No, no, not Rod Higgins. God, I can picture him. Anyway, he was drafted the
Yeah.
pick before me. He was a longer reach guy. Oh, what's his name? Good friend, too. Anyway, he played with and he had some knee problems eventually. He played with Philly and Cleveland. Anyway, they didn't get that pick. That guy got picked by Cleveland, the pick before, like the 20th pick. So I was Red's second alternative. But I also remember back, we played in the whatever was called the Lap Chick tournament in the Madison Square Garden my senior against at Christmas time, St. John's and St. Joe's, and is who he played. And Red was there scouting. I had a pretty good tournament, so that didn't hurt. So, but then being picked by the Celtics, yeah, it was like, wow, that was awesome. I mean, they were obviously, everybody knew Bird by then, and McHale and Parrish and DJ and Danny was there, and they'd won the championship in '81, and so going up there and being part of that, and then being a part of that era with the Magic Bird era and the magical '80s, and going to the finals four times in a
Yes.
row, it was a storybook situation.
You know what? And I can't imagine what it would feel like, being around, Larry Bird, who again, Hall of Famer, Kevin McHale, like you said, the Chief, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson, just what a great piece that was. What did you notice right away? Because I'm from Indiana originally. What did you notice right away about Larry Bird? Was it just the work ethic? Was it the trash talk? What did you get from him? And then did he elevate everybody else's game around him?
Oh, absolutely. Larry made everybody around him a better player. Um, and a better coach. And but we had we had 4 Hall of Famers the whole time I was there: DJ, Chief, Kevin, and Larry, and then Bill Walton for a couple years, plus a coach who'd been in the Hall of Fame as a coach and a player, Casey
Casey
Jones. But
Jones.
Larry, just his mental toughness, his ability to not really give a darn, as to what everybody else thought. But Larry's also a guy with a lot of great values and common sense. And Larry appreciated people who were team players and had good work ethic. And so I didn't have any problem with doing that. So it was phenomenal to be able to be with him. And sometimes you'd sit there, and whether you're in the game or you're on the bench watching, and you're going, he'd get some of these stretches in those years where you're like, man, one of the best things. I mean, awesome short shooter, scorer, one of the best defensive rebounders during his day in the league. But probably the best thing was passing.
Oh,
He just
yeah, his court vision,
incredible,
spatial awareness,
incredible
unbelievable.
passing, and defensively he was an excellent team defender and knew how to be there, and just but effort too, and you just gotta. It's just a privilege to be able to play with Larry during those years and be a part of it.
Love it. Any fun locker room story that you can remember about Larry saying, "Hey, I'm going left-handed on this one this whole game," or anything like that that sticks out to you?
Yeah, well, there was that was on a road trip actually in West Coast, and we were like 1 or 2 games left, and we're gonna go play Portland. And Larry says, I'm shooting every shot left-handed. He almost did, not quite, but I think he had about 10 buckets left-handed and still had 40 or something. But yeah, Larry just and the trash talk stuff. That's awesome that he did. Kevin was pretty good at it too, but
Yeah,
but um but the guys on the team, rode each other really hard, had a lot of fun with it. You're just thinking about Chris Ford, who rest in
just
peace, just
lost.
passed.
Yes,
I
sir.
remember, I didn't play with Chris, but had just retired and was assistant coach, and Larry and Kevin and Robert, Cedric Maxwell, they used to give Chris all kinds of grief. So there's trash talking among the team, but Larry as a player, he was Kevin used to Kevin used to say, "We're stealing these guys' brainwaves." He was getting in their heads. It wasn't a macho thing for him or anything like that. I think one, it was part of his way to get into his mindset of playing, but it was also the psychological part of any game. In baseball, you can throw a fastball close to a guy's chin or come in cleats up or something like that. And I'm sure there's a lot said in football, but basketball, hey, Larry, guy would check in, and Larry would tell the guy, he said, "Hey, your coach must not like you." He said, "What? Well, he got you guarding me, man."
Oh, that's good stuff.
So, uh,
Was there a Celtic who kind of took you under their wing and said, "Hey, we're going to teach you how to be a pro," or was it more of a collective thing because of the culture there, because of your teammates that you had?
I think it was more of a collective thing. I mean, number one, I think Red was wise enough and smart enough. They weren't bringing in knuckleheads
That's right.
usually, so but but just the collective, the professionalism of those guys, and we had great veterans on the bench, like my first year, like ML Carr and Quinn Buckner, guys who've been around the league 10 years, have been starters, maybe even made an all-star game, I think, in ML's case. And I remember them saying to me and Carlos Clark, who was the other rookie that year, "Hey, Rooks, enjoy this. We were in the finals." He said, "This doesn't happen too often." Those guys were 10 years into their career and never been, just their first trip to the finals, I believe. And here I get to go for 4 years in a row. So there was that kind of leadership on the bench. Um, and of course the guys, that we just have mentioned as starters. So it was great. I mean, one thing too that we had during those years that I never heard anybody talk about in the NBA since then, one of our goals was to never lose 2 games in a row,
Mm.
especially that 85, 86 team, and we did it that year until it was wrapped up. The last 2 games or something we lost. They let me and Rick Carlisle and Sam Vincent, some guys, play a lot, I mean, what a great goal. You are going to lose some games, but it was all about team, and we were always looking at the standings, back then it was, not only, in the East, Philly, Milwaukee, who's our closest contention for the best record, but even looking at the Lakers usually in the West. I remember just guys talking about it on the bus and in the locker room. And so we were that competitive that we were watching out the whole season. It meant something, your home court advantage, and it still does.
That's right.
I hear some guys talk today like, it doesn't matter, but and statistically it does. In this
Right.
analytic driven era, you better have home court advantage.
That's
So
right.
so that was the kind of atmosphere that there was there. They'd won the championship in '81. They'd been close with getting to the finals with Philly a couple other times, and they kind of had a reset there after the year before my rookie year. They kind of flamed out against Milwaukee. Bill Fitch was let go as a coach, and they brought in KC, and then they took off. We took off, had that great run.
How about the historical grounds of the Boston Gardens? There's legends of, the dead spots in the floor and pushing the teams to those dead spots to, be able to, play on the ball or down in the locker rooms. What do you remember most about the Boston Garden?
It's just an incredible atmosphere. Yeah, there's the talk about dead spots. I didn't dribble too much, so wasn't a problem with me. But there were some big lag bolts in the floor where they put that thing together, and I'm sure maybe a time or two you get some skin scraped off of that. But it was a unique floor, unique court. The seating. I mean, I remember you couldn't really get season tickets. I was able to pick up a couple extra to buy, but they were obstructed view, like one of the seats you had to like duck around a pillar to see the scoreboard or the court. And
It's like the
but what
Jazz
it
at the
was just
Salt Palace.
yeah, it was
uh,
just a classic place. And then of course, those great Celtics teams and all the talk about the
the
Red
Leprechauns.
doing this and Red doing that, the Leprechauns. We, we got a kid. I help coach a high school team, this private high school team. I'm assistant, and one of the kids, their family's from Boston, and we were in a tough game. We don't have a lot of depth, and we're in the fourth quarter, and our guys are exhausted. And there's a big water spilled. There's a glass of ice water spilled over on the other sideline. Has to be mopped up, and there's not a mop in the gym, and it takes them a while. And I go over there and I'm helping out, and the dad goes, "Hey, this is an old Red Auerbach deal."
uh,
The dad from Boston had actually he said, "They're getting some rest," had actually knocked the cup over to get us the timeout, but I don't know that Red ever did that stuff, but I mean, it was, uh it was certainly in their heads, a little bit like Larry, it was in their heads. I mean, we
there
had
you
those,
go.
no AC, the game, they had those games. We were just as hot as the Lakers,
That's
in
right.
the
Yeah.
heat wave in June. So, but, great memories of the Boston Garden.
Love it. You mentioned Red Auerbach. Was there any kind of like quote that he gave you or anything that he said to you in passing, whether it was about basketball or life, that really stuck with you that you hold on to today?
Um, I think when he saw me at rookie camp, he told me to get a haircut. That was I think uh, a little, oh, what do they call the party in the back action? A little, a little anyway, but no, I think the thing that I really appreciated about Red, among many other things, he would always after games or the next day or something because he was at all the home games. He'd go to the games in New York and I think in DC. He'd come in the locker room, and maybe I played 2 minutes and did this with other guys and set a good screen or played 5 minutes and got a couple of rebounds or something. He was always there complimenting you and saying something good about what you did, or if you were not pulling up your weight and dragging along, I'm sure he would said the same thing, positive things too. But Red had a great sense for the chemistry that you needed on a team. Not just the talent, but the different parts and the different components of people that you needed, and you needed some guys that could kind of, mess together personally. Not that they're all going to hang out with each other, but I think that Red's experience, he knew that. It was a masterpiece on how they put things together, and then his shrewd moves with like getting Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and drafting Larry when Larry's a junior eligible, and then they get him the next year, picking up DJ, later getting Bill Walton, and Bill's got all these, riddled with injuries, and he still passes the physical and all that. So it just, you know,
Finding a way, just find a way.
master executive. Yeah, yeah.
I love it. Love that stuff. And thinking about, you know, what those practices must have been like because, guarding Robert Parrish, playing against a Kevin McHale, that had to help you develop as a player too because these guys, veterans, and Kevin McHale had the over under. I mean, just great players. What was it like competing with them on a daily basis, and being that guy?
Competing with him on a daily basis, man, it's like going into the trees. I mean, I'm 6'11", but I got about a 7-foot wingspan, so I'm not really a long arm. Those guys are long. Kevin is probably about my height, maybe even a half inch shorter, but he could reach 5 inches higher than I could. And
Yeah,
and so, the top of your head isn't where you play basketball. It's where you can reach. And so, basketball people will talk about length, and we had great length on that front line with Parrish, Walton when he came, Cedric Maxwell had length, DJ had a lot of length. Murray wasn't bad. So that was and there were other teams like that too, the NBA still looks for that. So, I mean, you talk about going in and trying to get a shot off in there against those guys. It was tough, and not being able to bother those guys' shots. I mean, it was rare that you saw Kevin or Chief get their shot blocked just like Kareem. Just such a great skill and great length. But it was awesome. Those guys, of course, when you get in the NBA regular season, man, I hear it nowadays they don't practice. They give all
right.
these guys all this day
Yeah,
off and stuff like that. But and you had, you had veteran teams, and coaches were smarter, wasn't like you're running them to death. But
right.
we'd have the days where you had a 20-minute scrimmage or something like that, and maybe you've heard the stories, especially in the 85, 86 team. How we had the green and white. The greens were the subs, and we used to beat the heck out of those guys in practice. I mean, by beating the heck, I mean winning.
Yeah.
I know they were drained from playing a lot of minutes, but we were really, really competitive about that. And we had a chalkboard in the locker room at Hellenic College where we practiced. We used to keep score, and the whites, the starters, because we had a winning record, it hit on them so much they would go and cheat and erase our chalk marks and stuff.
But you know what
But
though? That's why the team was so great because you had that bench depth, you had that competitive spirit, you held each other accountable, and yet, you guys just achieved because there was selflessness in that.
there was, yeah, absolutely. We were pushing those guys a little bit. It made us better, obviously. Even though we got like a Hall of Famer off the bench with us in Bill Walton, but we had great shooters, Wedman, Jerry Seasting, Sam Vincent, Rick Carlisle, me, David Thirdkill, guys as subs in that particular year or years. And so when you look at championship teams or you look at teams that can contend, it's very, very important to have these role guys. Sometimes who they're playing every game, and sometimes they're just playing every now and then. Sometimes they get a few more minutes because every game is so important, like we said in that regular season. So being able to have, everybody could contribute in different ways, and as much as and importantly in practice too, because I think that pushed the guys and kept them sharp and made us better. So when we came in when we were playing together as a second unit, we had a lot of cohesion there.
Yeah, and see, I'm a strong believer that a player-driven team is far better than a coach-driven team because great players make great coaches. But the fact that, you guys would challenge each other like that and you knew what was expected of you, you knew your role. I mean, I read a quote where Larry Bird talked about you and said you were a tremendous hard worker and a banger. That had to make you feel good to get that vote of confidence from, your a legend Larry Bird.
Yeah, it's nice. I've heard, some things that have been written, some things that Larry said in some of the books and articles, and it's nice to be appreciated by Larry. But I think, like I said, earlier, I think Larry just appreciated all the guys any guys on the team that were, would work hard and contribute um, and it wasn't very often that we got a knucklehead on the team.
Right.
If they ever were, they weren't around very long. And
Right.
yeah, great to, like I said, just great to be a part of that, and great to be wonderful to be appreciative. I sure appreciate Larry. It was a lot of fun to watch him and be there during those days. And
Oh
but
man.
just all kinds of stuff like Kevin, McHale, and I. We used to do a lot. Kevin wanted some defense on post moves, and I probably bruised up Kevin once in a while. But it was a lot of fun. We'd do a lot of one-on-one playing in the post, and not that it ever was a big score, but it helped me. It helped me and helped too. So it was just a great atmosphere of level of professionalism, because I did go on from there to other teams and
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
in the NBA, but you didn't always see that. You definitely didn't always see that, where certain guys put in a lot of extra work on their game, and they're doing it every day, and they're there early, they're getting ready, they're conditioned. So that's what being a winner and a champion's about. You got to have a lot of self discipline and self motivation, and then if you can translate that into leaders or multiple leaders on the team, you got one of the best basketball teams in history when that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, you got something special. That's no doubt. I know going from like the Boston Celtics to other franchises that probably didn't have the resources and had younger talent as you kind of moved around. But Bill Russell was an executive later when I think you were with the Kings with Coach Jerry Reynolds. Is that correct? And what was it like
Yes.
being around, one of the greatest?
Um, well, I was around Bill a little bit. Probably Bill Russell, when I was playing in Sacramento, played a lot of golf. So apparently he wasn't
There you
around a
go.
lot. But no, I appreciated being able to be picked up by the Kings. That was I had a stretch with the Clippers for a year and a half, and
Yep,
got a little 6 weeks or something with the Hornets their first year, and then was a free agent. And it started the season. They had Ralph Sampson,
that's
but
right.
Ralph was limited by injuries and on the injured list. So they added me, and Danny was there. We had Rodney McCray, Kenny Smith, Wayman Tisdale,
Oh,
and Harold Presley, and then Jerry Reynolds started as coach, but then they actually brought in Dick Motta,
did
and Dick was there for the last 3 quarters of the season. So yeah, it was great to be around Bill Russell then. Bill was around the Celtics occasionally. He'd come by and visit, and stop by, and when he's in town, and drop in the locker room or training room. And but like anywhere I went in the NBA, I mean, there were always, and it wasn't the Boston Celtics, but the LA
right.
Clippers. They played for Gene Shue. Gene was a heck of a coach. I mean, there was guys there who were talented, but it just the
Yeah,
right combination of talent and the atmosphere and things like that. But it was and good experience playing for Dick Motta and Jerry Reynolds too.
that's
You
right.
don't get to be an NBA coach without having a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience.
That's right. That's right. And then, of course, I'm looking back through, a lot of notes. And then, in '93, you're with the Magic. And again, Shaq comes in a little bit later. Nick Anderson, Steve Kerr was there, who's doing a great job now. So again, some of the people that you've been able to, associate with, build relationships with, I think it's phenomenal. And the fact that you knew your role and you played your role well. I mean, kudos to you for accepting that role and coming in and doing your job. I mean, that takes a lot of discipline and focus to say, okay, this is my job and I'm going to be ready when I'm called upon.
Yeah, and it's in Boston, so I'm the backup to the backup center, a big guy there, and so when you're contending team, you don't have a lot of room um to throw young guys out there and have them, let them make some mistakes and learn there. So it was nice for me the next 2.5 years when I got to play with the Kings, the Hornets, and the Clippers. I got a lot more playing time started, and then went to the Magic, which were a second year team after the
Right.
expansion, and which was our off-season home, Orlando. So that was great. I got to start and play all 82 games the first year, and then started most of the games the next year. And then they brought Shaq in, and they gave him my starting job for some reason, and I've never got an explanation. It must be in the employee file. Maybe late or insubordinate. No, he was pretty good, but it was so it was great being a part of that. And then they had Penny Hardaway the next year, and so I'm back, and I'm getting to be 33, 34, and I'm backing up Shaq and playing 10 minutes here and there. And unfortunately, obviously we were on the trajectory on the way up to make the playoffs, and which we did our Shaq's second year, but I partially tore my Achilles in the my only severe injury during my playing days during Penny's rookie year, and there went my backup spot behind Shaq. I got healthy, but never really played for the Magic again after that.
Right. Well,
But
and Pat Williams was the GM of the Magic, and what a class act he is. He's been a guest on our show and just a tremendous author and has had success with books. What did you enjoy about Pat Williams?
yeah, Pat's a pretty unique character. He's really kind of the brainchild and founder of the Orlando Magic, one of the original owners. Jim Hewitt and he got together. There's a great story behind it, and he talked about trying to bring a franchise to Orlando and to Florida. And you had Disney here, but Orlando really wasn't a big sports town. So Pat was able to pull that off and get the Magic going. He's still he's battled some cancer the last several years, but he's still on the go out there speaking and writing his books and his radio show, and just a great positive motivational guy, and had a great career in basketball with the Sixers and with the Magic, and putting some great organizations and teams together.
I love it. I love that stuff. I mean, some of these stories are just fun. And, with the Magic, Matt Gukas was coaching, but another Indiana guy, Scotty Skiles, was down there with you, Dennis Scott. Matter of fact, I think Sam Vincent was even with you for a short time there as well, who I've
Yes.
gotten to know real well and have been friends with. And he's doing some coaching overseas. But uh, is there anybody, because we're so blessed to have been at the highest levels, and it's all about relationships. Who are some of the relationships that are still meaningful you today, and you're still in touch with these guys and have conversations and visits with?
Well, it's kind of like this with I think any of the former NBA players. It's kind of like a fraternity. It's a
Right.
brotherhood. So, particularly the guys of my generation that I played with or overlapped with, we love it when we bump into each other or see each other. And I don't know as many guys from younger years, but we have the National Basketball Players Retired National Basketball Retired Players Association, called Legends of Basketball. You can go to the website, Legends of Basketball, and they have some couple of conferences each year. One at All Star Weekend. I'm trying to get out to a little bit of the one in Salt Lake this year, and so it's just great to see guys there. But locally, we have a chapter, and we sometimes do an event. So, I stay in touch and see some guys who work for the Magic, like Nick Anderson, Jeff Turner, Bo Outlaw, Tree Rollins is around here, Anthony Bowie. Stay in touch with some other guys, Rick Carlisle a little bit, Danny, Fred Roberts. So, um, there's just those relationships. There's certainly guys you're a little closer to because play with them longer or developed a friendship. But I think any of them, I think, like when Casey Jones passed away a year ago,
Oh,
Christmas, you know, uh, Rick picked up the phone and called some guys, and all of a sudden we had six or seven of his former players on just talking about it, and just that great bond, of being have played together and sweat together. But like I say, even if you didn't play with a guy as a teammate, you kind of you relate a lot to him, now in the and coaches as well, coaches,
that's right.
referees, etc.
Yeah, and
We
see, I
all
love that. Love that.
we
Because
all
again,
realize what a great ride it was. And some guys have been able to continue on with careers in the field, but we all enjoyed it and probably all miss it if we're when we're not around it.
yeah, I'm a firm believer that there's so many parallels between sport and life. What's one of the life lessons that you learned being in the NBA for all those years and having a professional career, playing a little bit in the CBA towards the twilight of your career? But is there a life lesson that has kind of stuck with you that you still use and preach and talk to your kids about today?
Wow. I think, well, couple things I can think of. One is persistence, you know, and doing things on a regular basis, doing the right thing, you know,
Yeah.
not only just stuff on the court, but off the court and your character and your life, persistence and
Amen.
consistency. And you know, it doesn't just happen. Certainly some guys are born taller or quicker, you know, athleticism, but you know, Carl Lewis obviously what wasn't an NBA player, so it takes a lot. You can be a great athlete, you can be a good athlete, but it takes a lot of hard work. So persistency, hard work, and then I think things too. I wish I'd you know maybe been mastered this a little bit better, but always believing in yourself, being confident,
Ooh.
you know, being humble, but also you know being you know confident, learning to be able to do things under pressure. You know,
Yeah, I
powerful
love
in the
that.
game. It's a great, it's a exciting situation when you're in there, and of course, the adrenaline gets going, things like that. But all those things can, you've got those sort of situations in life, and those are some of the things I think I've learned,
Oh, see,
among
great. Yeah,
many
great,
others.
great nuggets right there, Greg. Really appreciate you sharing that. Let's go more on the personal side of your life now. Going to BYU, being a man of faith, having high character. How much did that faith help you maintain consistency, throughout your career and now your life after basketball?
Well, I think my faith, we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I think it's always just been part of me, and it really been blessed, I think, in my life by whether, you know, and I was blessed by what I was able to do in basketball and it's a lot of fun, but just in so many other ways. We have a, you know, a wonderful family, a big family, and but just being able to you know, being able to have the guidance and the wisdom and the the faith-based beliefs that I have, I know that lead to me and my family being happier and probably less. Not that we don't face hardships and trials from health to work to mental health to family relationships. All of us have those, but I think that faith that I have and that we have, it makes those things a lot easier and give us a great perspective on things as well too.
Amen. And I appreciate you, speaking on that because I'm faith based myself, and I know that I rely on that, and I strive to be a better version of myself each day. So thanks for sharing that, Greg. You and I
Yeah.
also share something else in common. With our families, we adopted a son, and you've adopted several children. You mentioned you have a large family. Talk about that a little bit and what that family unit means to you and how blessed you are to have that size of a family.
Well, whether you have one kid or two or five or 10, like we have 10 children, believe it or not. We have no brain cells. Okay. You start losing brain cells with one kid, but no, we're empty nesters. Our two youngest are 22. They're twin boys in college. One's at
Congratulations.
BYU, one's at UVU, Utah Valley. But
Yeah.
so we thought we were in recovery with the brain cell thing, but you know, family, children, it's really what it's all about. And the way God brought our family to us. Jenny, my wife, was a college basketball player. She's 5'10". She told me she wanted a big family, and I thought she meant power forwards, centers, volleyball players, and supermodels. So we got most of all of our girls look like supermodels, and we did have two
Oh,
daughters who played college basketball, but she meant big in numbers. So I'm joking. We were you know, so adoption was the way our family was, but that God helped to bring our family to us, and what a great sacrifice and act of love from those birth parents or birth mothers and things like that. But we don't even think twice about it. It's really just how our family came to be, and we really believe that our family, even our adopted family, we can, you know, with the right choices, we can all be together eternally, and so we have great peace and joy in that. But it's a lot of fun. We were just able to get together. It's hard with that bunch that big to get them all together. We have 19 going on 20 grandkids now, and they're all 10 and under, and a core of them live out in Utah or go to school in Utah. So we actually spent the week after Christmas in southern Utah, Pine Valley near St. George up in the mountains,
Oh, I
and had
saw that picture. That was
seven of
beautiful
our
that
10
you
kids,
said.
17 of our 19 grandkids, and 5 of our son or daughter-in-laws there. And it was a lot of fun. Plus some other family. My wife has a brother and sister and their families who live in Utah. They came out. So, um, that's just awesome. It's great to be able to communicate. We do Zoom meetings, not that everybody gets on, but once a week we do a little Zoom meeting with our family. So,
Oh,
it just, it really brings a lot of joy and happiness and being able to do those. We get caught up so much in, well, you got a big family, you got one kid, you got to work, you got to do a lot of stuff with your career and your job, but the time that we can spend with our kids and our families or others, just like without anybody able to do in basketball. I love basketball, but it's good to be able to work with these young men that I do, just because it's well, number one, it gets them off a screen, off the phone or computer or video game for a couple hours. But they're also learning a lot of life lessons that we learned, and so spending time with your kids, spending time with family, helping others. You think about, man, it's sad to see all the struggles people have had, like with the pandemic and
yeah.
suicide rates, even for kids being up. And you can, if you lose yourself in others, whether it's your family or helping others, doing others, you really bring yourself up. So that's a big
Amen.
thing I think is really important.
Amen. I just wanted to bring that up because I don't think enough people know that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, Tony Dungy has a large extended family, also down there in Florida, who I have the utmost respect for, yourself. And I just think it's wonderful that you can have a family unit and have all that love, under that roof. And so, God bless you for that. I think it's wonderful. You should be commended for that. And that's why I wanted to bring it up and I wanted you to speak on it. So thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
How
Sometimes we needed to be committed, not commanded. Commanded
that's
with the straight jacket, but anyway, especially my wife. That she's the saint. She's the incredible one who put this all together. Yeah.
See, I feel the same way, and that's how I ended up staying in Utah. I met and fell in love with the most wonderful woman, and the best decision I ever made in my life was, being married to Kim, and we have a beautiful family. And talk about your relationship with Jennifer. I mean, 40 years of marriage. I mean, that's just wonderful that you guys have that, that bond, that love, and that connection that you've had to, have all this love for family.
Yeah, it is. It started, like I said, we met when we were at BYU, and just to give you an idea about her, she's so competitive. We actually went out on kind of a semi-blind date. There was um, uh, we hadn't met each other in person yet, kind of seen each other at practice, and it was after our first game when I'm a freshman, and we lost, I think, to Illinois. And she goes, "I can't believe you went on that date." She said, "I would have been so ticked off. I would have canceled the date." She said, "But we go for some pizza and you're laughing and having fun." And so, anyway, Jenny was a really good shooter too. So I proposed to her later, sometime later when we were at BYU, and I told her to meet me outside mine where she lived in the dorms at that time, at the outdoor basketball court, and it's in the winter. I said, "We're gonna have a free throw contest." So I let her win. So I gave her the ring when she won the free throw. No, I kid, I let her win. She was like an 80+% free throw shooter. So I knew I had a a good thing there. But yeah, she's really obviously has a love for children and family, but just got a great sense on seeing and having a vision and things that lead to great things for the long term future, not only our family, but when I was towards the end of my playing career in the early '90s here in Orlando, she and a friend who were a teacher, especially Jenny, started kicking around this idea of starting a private school. They just seen some needs and some kids falling in the gap, and I thought, man, this will be. So that sounds like a lot of work, and this idea will blow over. I was right on the first one. It's a lot of work. I was wrong on the second one. 27 years later, since from 1996 on, we helped to found, she and I, Pathways School. She's helped to run it with her friend who's now the principal of it. And about 200 kids or so from K through 12. And
Wow.
they've done a lot of good with that, and so that's been and it was a good fit, and it's a business. We have a nonprofit organization that runs it, but our kids were able to go there while she was there, and go home with them and that sort of thing, and so and but that's kind of person Jenny is. She's a real
See,
uh,
I love
planner.
that, Greg. You and I both overachieved and we married up, and that's the best decision I know I made. So I, I feel so blessed and fortunate.
I can appreciate that. Yeah, Scott. It's good to, as they say, outkick your coverage. Yeah,
Boy, did
yeah.
I. Hey, we've got 2 or 3 minutes here. Any last words of advice or encouragement, for our viewers around the globe here today?
Oh, encouragement and advice. Like I said earlier, it's life's going to throw some tough stuff at you, but I think if you reach towards the light, seek to do good, seek to love and care for your fellow man, and then help these kids out there to understand, that having faith in your life is a huge thing, and so much of it is missing, but also just getting out and doing things together as a family, having dinner, you know, and spending time with your kids, what they like, and what they learn about them, helping them with homework, get kids involved, whether it's sports, get them involved in something, something where they're doing activity, arts, whatever it may be, and work together. Those are things that I think are great values that sometimes are missing, and we get busy in life and we forget about it. And we can all get so caught up, and these devices are incredible, but we can also get so caught up. That's all we spend all our time doing. So I think thinking of others and doing things for others, and thinking from that perspective is really a key.
I so agree with you, and I appreciate you saying that. I really feel that the ability to connect and have those relationships, but having those meaningful relationships and having those empowering conversations so we can lead, guide, and direct the youth to pass the torch. I think is also important. So I appreciate you speaking on that, Greg. What a wonderful 50 some minutes that we've had here together, my friend. I appreciate you. If you're able to get out here for All Star, hey, I'm here in Utah, would love to connect, break bread with you, and continue to grow our relationship, because this has been a lot of fun, and it's had to be inspiring and empowering for the listeners and viewers today. So I thank you, and I'm full of gratitude for your selfless and sharing this time with our viewers today.
Well, thank you, Scott. I enjoyed it, and hope the viewers enjoy it, and look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.
Let's do it. Hey, be safe out there. Continue to be blessed, and continue to impact the lives of those that you're around on a daily basis. I know we have ups and downs, but I want to give you your flowers and say, God bless you. Continue the great work, and thank you once again for being a guest on the Coach Scott Field Show, my brother.
Thank you, Coach Scott. Have a great one.
You bet. God bless.